What's up, guys? Steven here from Powell's Power Ups. Got an overview video for a client. This is Jackie's SP Sabers Darkness V3 Kylo Ren replica lightsaber. It's been sent to me. I did an overhaul on it and, gave it the Powell's Power Up touches. So, Jackie, sit down, get comfortable. This is your overview video. I'm going to go over everything about your lightsaber, everything I did to it, how to properly handle it, what to do, what not to do. That way you are, being safe and protecting your investment and things like that. These are your fully unstable, main blades sleeve pieces, right? These are all the same, and then this is the top piece to taper down to your tip. I'm going to go over that later on. I'm going to set it aside for now. These are your two batteries that you sent me. I think you were curious as to whether or not these are rechargeable. They are. These are the exact perfect batteries that you need. You have two of them already. I just don't think you had a charger. So you do have a charger in here I'm going to show you. But these are great batteries. They run a long time and they hit their max 15 amp continuous discharge current, which means all of your blasters and your lightning block and your lockup, all that white effect will be very bright and very shimmery. That's what that means. So these have a long run time, 5,000 milliamp hours, and this is the battery I've used in my Saber installs already. So you have two of them, so that's great. These will last a long time, and then you'll have one. You can just swap it out when the other one dies. Let's set those aside for right now. Let's open up your box. So you already know probably how this comes apart. Sleeve slides off. Set that aside. I'm gonna take the lid off. Lay that aside. First thing you'll see is some paperwork. So I provide all of my customers paperwork that kind of goes over a few things. The first thing is kind of the configuration and setup. So you had a few special requests with yours. First of all, I have my regular Kylo Ren sound font package set up on here. Okay, you have the K-Sith Crossguard version 5 package, which has 4 fonts on it. There are ones from different movies. Force Awakens, I have a part 2 or a second one. Then I have The Last Jedi, and then I have The Rise of Skywalker. There's different types of ignitions based off of the blades in the movies and different hums and different sounds, so they all sound different. And then there's Unstable version 1 and version 2 by Kyberphonic, which is also Kylo Ren stuff. This is from The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker. Okay, now the few extra things I did was, you said that you were kind of like a Kylo Ren / Reylo fan, and you liked Kylo Ren's like softer spoken quotes, not so much him yelling and gonna kill everyone. So I changed the quotes for these fonts and then wrote them on here. So as you're going through these fonts, it'll say, "You're my guest." So that's how you know you're on number 1. When you go to number 2, it'll say, "I want to be free of this pain." You'll hear him talking. So I changed out all those quotes inside all of the fonts so they would be the softer spoken Kylo. Also, all of the force effects, which you'll see me trigger later, those are quotes that you can activate while the blade is on, and you get like a blade effect while it's happening. Those quotes, I also went through every one of them for all the different movies and deleted all the savage ones, and you just have the softer spoken ones on there, mostly where he's like talking to Rey. So those are on there. I also added 3 extra presets. One down here is Unstable version 2 by Kyberphonic, but instead of it having the traditional red unstable blade, it has a rainbow fire blade. So that's something unique and different that you'll see. And then you said you wanted some silent fonts so that you could just put the saber up on display and have it lit up but no sounds. So I built in some silent fonts, and you have 2 options there. You have Kylo Ren's blade style, so it can be doing his red unstable, or I have a rainbow wave blade style, so it'll just do waves of rainbow color. And both of these are silent. There's no sound to them at all. It's just silent. So you'll have those as well. Then There's a few little details on here. Then when you get to the second page and all the following pages, you have all of your controls of how to actually operate it. So you have 2 buttons. You're using the FET 263 prop file for the 2-button controls. So pay attention to your controls as you're going through them. The buttons aren't the only thing that matters. Sometimes it matters like the orientation of the saber, like whether you're pointing up or pointing down. For example, like to go to the next font, you actually here I'm just using this example, you need to be parallel or up. If you want to go to the previous font, it needs to be pointing down. So I know some people message me afterwards and they don't know why it's skipping around. They're having trouble getting to the font they want, and it's because they're either pointing up or down or whatever. It's not going the way they want. So pay attention throughout all of the instructions. See, here's another one, parallel or down. The orientation of the saber matters as well. So this thing is capable of all kinds of stuff. So you can see there's several pages of instructions. So keep these handy, but if you have any questions, you can reach out and I'll try to help you. So moving on, set these instructions aside. Move your foam over. So here's your saber, okay? So first here on the left, you have your Nightcore portable USB charger. This is the perfect charger, the one that you need for your batteries. So this will charge them. I'm gonna charge them up before you get them, so they'll both already be fully charged. So you got those. I'll leave this here on the side. You have your plaque, right? This was already in there, but when it got to me, I mean, it was just kind of like laying in there, and it wasn't even in the wrapper. So to prevent it from scratching anything, I put it back in the wrapper and just put some masking tape over it to kind of keep it from flying out again, and put it in place so it don't scratch anything. On the right side here, you have your 2 side blades. These are NeoPixel side blades made with my squishy TPU material and unstable design. You got your connectors there on the bottom. If your connectors ever get dirty, by the way, because I just noticed these are dirty, I usually clean them before they get to you. You can buy this WD-40 contact cleaner solution. Just take a Q-tip, coat that down, and just give it a little wipe with a Q-tip, and you can clean up your connectors just like that. Anyway, so these are your unstable blades. You got many NeoPixel strips in there. My strips go pretty much all the way to the tip, which illuminates the whole thing, so they look great. So we'll put those in later, though. I'll show you how they go in. And then you have a Ziploc baggie with your with 2 Allen wrenches. You used to have a whole bunch of Allen wrenches in here, but now you only have 2. You only need 2. The bigger one is for your 3 button head screws that disassemble the hilt. The smaller one is for all 3 of your blades used. So this is your M4, and this is your M3. This is for your side and main blades. So we'll go over that part next once we get out the hilt. So I'll leave those in there. Leave it rolled up. Put this back, put this back. Let's get out the foam and take a look at the hilt. So I did all my fancy modifications to the hilt that I do to everyone else's who I get this from. First thing I did, if you have this, you know that the handle section is kind of wobbly and rattly. So I got rid of the M3s and I upgraded these three screws to M4 button head screws. And I also threaded the handle. So when these go in there, they're threaded into the handle as well as the core section. So this thing is super solid now, and there's no rattling at all. And these are some big bulky, M4s, so they work great. Also, the side blades are M3 size set screws, and I think the main blade was like an M2, and so it was really tiny, really hard to get to, not super great at holding the blade in, so I upgraded that one to an M3, which is the same size as these. So that's been changed, so it's stronger now, holds that in. Let's see what else. I redid your red wire. So in the bottom here, let me zoom this camera in. In the bottom, you can see it actually, I make that hole bigger, and it actually goes in there now, and it's actually glued in, so it's not gonna come out of the bottom, okay? And in the top, you'll see this when I take it apart, the red wire is actually glued on there as well, so it won't come out. And the only place it splits is right there for disassembly. But when you put it back together, you just tuck in the red wire right there, like so. And your blue wire, also I'll show you when I take it apart, has also been redone and glued in place, so it won't move anywhere now and looks great. So I did that. I also, let's see. We'll talk about the rest of it once I take it apart. I redid all this bottom section down here. It's good to go now. All right, let's just take it apart. Well, actually, let's talk about the blade plugs. Those are in. So the blade plugs are going to be in it when you get them, just for transportation, packaging purposes. But another thing I do with these is I upgrade the blade plugs by putting plastic bottoms on them because they are metal, you know, and with the NeoPixel connectors in there, if you use metal ones, it would short and fry all your electronics. So I 3D print plastic covers and glue them on the bottom with E6000. So all three of your blade plugs have that, so you can just put them in for display purposes and you don't have to worry about your electronics being damaged. Also, because you know this one before, I think it had silver or gray colored 3D printed holders for the connectors. I do black in mine, just I like black better. So you got black ones in there. These are your stock version 3 and PXL connectors. So those are all in there. All right, so let's take apart the hilt. So taking apart the hilt, step one, you know, I redid the magnet on, I don't think there was a magnet on your main button, but I redid that. So to get the main button out, which is step number 1 for disassembly, get yourself some plastic, or these are actually ceramic, but you want some like non-metal tweezers. And then what you're gonna do is, I'll show you. See the little grooves, the little notches in the switch. You just grab with some tweezers and pull that dude straight up and out, just like that. Super easy. That's all you have to do. And whenever you put it back in, it just drops in. But for disassembly, the best way to get it out is just use tweezers. Pull it straight up. So set that aside. Let me zoom back out. Next, we're going to take off the all 3 of the button head screws on the outside. Doesn't really matter what order when you're taking it apart, but it will matter when we put it back together. So you can take these all the way out. When I get to this part, I like to handle the Saber by the top, by the emitters, if that makes sense. Especially once I take the handle off and I start, you know, working with the chassis. So I get all 3 of those off, okay, and then we untuck our red wire, bam, just like that. So now I hold it upside down and I pretty much take the handle up and off quickly, just like that. Let it slide off. This whole section here is, you know, all been put back together. The wire here is all glued in place. This is just kind of a shell. It doesn't really do anything. So that's one solid piece. It does have a 3D printed resonance chamber that I put down inside of the bottom. It just slides in and out just like you see there. What it does is it helps concentrate the sound of the speaker by narrowing that area down, you know. Helps it be a little bit louder and have more depth and clarity coming out the bottom. So if this falls out, that's okay. Just drop it right back in by sliding it down. But that's your resonance chamber. It improves sound. Next, we can, you know, continue holding by the emitters, but we're going to take off this piece is also a shell. You have the liquid tape, which is like liquid electrical tape, over the soldered areas of your Profi board as kind of an added layer of protection. But just to be safe, still you want to lift kind of up over that Profi board as you're taking this shell piece off. Okay, so let's look at this again. I'll show you here on the inside. You can see where the red wire is glued down into place so that it doesn't move, but it still kind of goes in there and looks good. So no other modifications to that piece, just kind of a shell. So we're just going to set it aside. Now, this is the core of your lightsaber. let's talk about some things I did here. When I disassembled it, whenever I put these together, I normally use Loctite thread locker, because there are a bolt in each of the emitters that hold the emitters on, and then there's 6 bolts inside this core in here that hold this top section together and the bottom section together. Now, I was not able to use Loctite on the bolts that are in the sides. When I took it apart, the bolts looked like they were covered in maybe like a super glue or maybe another type of adhesive, so I could not get them out, and didn't want to try to mess with that. So I was not able to put Loctite on the bolts in the emitters, side emitters, but it seemed really tight already. It's not loose at all. I can't get it to come loose, by wiggle on them. They don't wiggle, so they're probably fine. But I did, when I took apart, I was able to get out the 6 bolts in the core in here, and I did use Loctite on them. So before, when I got this, there was some like loose, twisty play in here, but there's not now. It's totally solid. Also, the blue wire has been glued on, in the little space here with E6000, so it won't go anywhere. And I also add heat shrink to the top and the bottom of the blue wire to kind of bind them together so they're kind of one piece. So this just kind of hangs out here like that, and it won't come off. Your magnet there has been E6000 glued to the primary switch, and that is what your main switch magnetizes to, so be careful not to like rip that off. But it's glued on there pretty good. It shouldn't come off. Your auxiliary switch, you said you wanted a magnet version of that as well, but it wasn't really needed. All you really needed was a longer, taller tactile switch there. The one that comes with it is the same length as the power. It's a lot shorter, but it's not, it doesn't work well when you try to push it. But this longer one, you'll see when I put it back together, the longer one is actually quite perfect, and you don't really need a magnetized version of that at all. Moving on, so we got your chassis here. You wanted a color match to the pummel, so I printed it in black, left all the accents black, but I sanded it down, and then I mixed silver, like a silver metallic paint, and a red, and I mixed it until I got a perfect color match to your pummel there. So that's kind of the same color now. So your chassis, just like the one you had before, it is 3D printed. So you do want to be careful with it when you're handling it. It's not like break proof. It is plastic. It can break. It's screwed in and held into this metal section here by 3 set screws. I think when I got it from you, it only had 1. There's 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 screws that hold it in. But it's still pretty solid, So just handle, as long as you're handling the Saber by the emitter portion here, you'll be fine. Just don't be swinging it around by this portion like this. This is your battery section, right? Your battery comes in and out super easy. We got a traditional, spring tab there. I'll show you how that works in a minute. We got your speaker on the bottom. So your speaker actually blew. It was I think it was a Smuggler's Outpost. It was a 4 ohm. They have the 4 ohm Elite speaker, but it was blown. I noticed when I always check them now when I wire them back up to make sure they're not blown, because they're kind of a pain to change. But it was blown. It was crackling, popping. It was blown. So I swapped yours out. I put a new one in yours. I used the speakers from the Saber Merchant, and I specifically use 8 ohm speakers now. I'm trying to stay away from the 4 ohm because the 4 ohm speakers, they don't like the Kylo Ren sound fonts, like the really loud cracking and distortion and all that clipping that comes through, all that unstable sound. They just don't do well with the Kylo Ren sound fonts, and they typically blow. And I've had to change out quite a few, I feel like, using the 4 ohm speakers. And the Profi board ain't no joke. Its amp pushes the speakers a lot harder than the CFX does. So I use the 8 ohm speakers. They're almost as loud. They still sound really great, really good clarity, and they just prevent all that distortion and crackling coming through. So these speakers last a lot longer, but it's still, just as good as quality. I really like the Saber Merchant speakers. So if you want to access your USB port or the SD card, you just take this little first order symbol wire cover, which is 3D printed, and you just lift it up and out. So it's just a 3D printed piece that comes out, just covers your wires. It's for aesthetic purposes, but you can use some tweezers or whatever kind of here on the side of the SD card and wiggle it out if you need to get it out. If you want to change some things around on your font, maybe you want different quotes or something, it's super easy just to do by taking out that. Then you put it in, you just get it started, and then you just push it all the way down. So with the Profi board, it doesn't click in, you just push it in. That's it. Now, if you want to access the USB port there, you do not lift up the Profi board. You just leave it alone where it is. And all you do is get you a one of these 90-degree L-shaped ports that look like this, like a top-down one. This is what I use. You can get it on Amazon pretty cheap. And you just plug in. You just plug in like so. You can plug in like that without ever having to lift up the Profi board. But be careful. You don't want to lift up or yank on this cord while it's plugged in, because you don't want to rip off your USB port with an upward motion. You want to pull straight out whenever you out and away whenever you take it out. Okay, when you're done, take your little cover and it just presses down inside of this gap nice and snug like that, covers the wires. All right, without further ado, we'll pop a battery in and we'll get this thing brought to life. All right, battery. So make sure you take your time, look at the label on your battery. You want to put the battery in correctly as far as, the positive and negative side. You do not want to put it in backwards, because that can fry your electronics. So the negative side, the flat side, always goes against the spring. Okay, so it always goes against the spring. When you're handling this, again, handle it by the metal upper core. I always get gassy and have to burp when I do these videos. Anyway, negative goes against the spring. All you do is drop the negative side in. You just use your finger and press against that spring. See, it's springy. And then just push the positive side in. So speaker's still loud, still sounds great. You can hear that's always for the boot sound. I like to use the sound of Kylo Ren's helmet, like when he takes it off. To take it out, you just do the opposite. You just use your fingernail, and I'm just pushing down against that spring, and then I'm just lifting the positive end out. So I'm just pushing down and lifting out, pushing down and pushing in. It's really easy to do, as you can see here, multiple demonstrations. I swear I have the whole battery compartment thing nailed down. It's perfect. Too many times I had Sabers where I couldn't get the battery in and out, or it was too loose, so it took a lot of time and got it just right. Anyway, battery in. You got that boot sound, and you're ready to fire it back up now. So there's our beautiful NPXL connectors, right? Alright, so let's put it back together. So we got the battery in, we want to put it back together, we want to play with it. We're going to start with this shell portion here. Let me zoom back out. Again, I like to kind of hold it, by the emitters. I'm going to be careful to slide up and over that Profi board, because this is metal and I don't want to touch any of those pads. So just go up and over, and I'm gentle with it, just gentle wiggling it till it just kind of sits in place. You want that auxiliary button to sit right over that switch right there. You can see it underneath. Then we're going to slide on the handle. Be careful, your little resonance chamber likes to slide out at this point, but we want to line up that gap right there with where the auxiliary switch is. So same thing, we're just going to slide up and over and line that up. Now, it won't go all the way, it'll stop. That's okay, it's supposed to. So at this point, we're going to line up this shell with the holes, okay? So you're just going to take your bolts and just get the threading started. Don't screw them down all the way yet, because you need them all three to line up. If you tighten one down all the way first, then the holes won't line up correctly. So just put them in with your fingers, get the threading started. Then I like to kind of stand it up like this, give it a little shake so that it all gets straight, and then the one I tighten down all the way first is the one underneath the button, so it keeps everything, you know, in line. So this is the one I tighten down all the way first, and I don't go super tight. You don't want to go super tight and strip everything. You just want to tighten down. Next, I do the one by the auxiliary button so that I know that that is nice and close to each other. And then I tighten down the other one to finish it up. And you'll know once you get these bolts in, your hilt will feel super solid, and it is now very solid at this point. You just take your red wire, tuck it into the clip, like so. Take your magnetic power switch, and you just drop it in place, okay? So here's your, you can hear your auxiliary button. You can actually see the auxiliary kind of pokes out a little bit. Looks like it has a little beer belly compared to this one. That's the switch sticking up.
I want to be free of this pain. I know what I have to do. We'll kill him together. I'm being torn apart.
So as you can see, it's super easy to push that button now, especially with your thumb.
When I offer you my hand again, he'll take it.
I'll show you your rainbow fire one. Let's see here.
When I offer you my hand again, he'll take it.
So it has the same quote, so that's how you know it's the second one. And you can tell it's changing colors. Then you have your two silent fonts, which have the beeps. So the beep means it's silent, there's no sound, but you'll have, you know, the blade style. So you can put the blades in, put it up on display, and it just lights up, you know. You still have all your gesture controls and stuff. And then when you go to the second beep, that's your, it's just like a rainbow wave. It'll look better when I put the blades in. All right, so let's go back to the first one. So now I'm going to show you how to put in the blades. We're going to do the side blades first. So because these are clear, you can sort of make out like where the strips are, because, you know, it's two strips back to back. So when the strip is facing you directly, it's brighter. And then when it's the sides of them like this, it's darker if you're looking at it that way. So I like to put the sides literally on the sides, and I like the strips to face down and up. So I like to turn it on, put in the strip. Do not do any twisting, but just push it straight in and see where it is. And actually, I think I got them facing up and down already. Anyway, once I find where I want it, I'm just going to hold it. Let me turn it back off. I'm just going to hold it and push in against the pins. So those pins are spring-loaded. So you push in against the pins. Then we're going to use our little Allen wrench thing here and tighten down the set screw up against that blade to hold it from coming out. And then test it. And then you can do the other one. Just see where it's at, turn it, get it adjusted where you want. And then you want to hold it in against those pins. You don't want to do any twisting though, because you don't want to bend the pins. Just kind of hold it against yourself and do it. Tighten down that screw so that it won't come out. And there's our side blades. So now I'm going to turn the camera and I'm going to put in the main blade and we'll go over that. Alright, so here is your main blade. I didn't measure it, but I think it's about 36, 34. With the flame tip, because you wanted a flame tip, it's about 35 inches, but about an inch of it, maybe a little more, goes into the hilt itself. So it's about average around 34. It's polycarbonate, 1 inch outer diameter. You got your NeoPixel connector there on the other end, and you have the flame tip here. So special thing about the flame tip, it's actually this perfect, what am I trying to say here? Perfect I don't know, my mind's going blank. It comes in and out perfectly is what I'm trying to say. If you just give it a little wiggle and pull out, you'll notice it comes out very easily, okay? But you have to give it a lot of wiggle at first. And then you have about 6 LEDs there that stick up. Those go up into the tip to illuminate it, right? But I made this come off, that way your unstable pieces, more specifically the top piece, I wanted it to slide on and off more easily. And this flame tip is a little bit bigger around than the blade. So when we're gonna, I guess we'll slide that on now. As you can tell, I didn't rehearse any of this. But anyway, let's do all the bottom pieces first. Let me see if I can remember how this goes. So these pieces are also squishy, durable TPU material. They're clear so that your light will shine through. But you just start stacking them on, okay? And these pieces are all the same, but you just reverse them as you go to maintain the pattern. They have a specific pattern, and as you put them on, you just kind of line up the pattern like little pieces of Tetris, I guess you could say, or a puzzle. So you just slide them on over your blade. Line up all the pieces. Might be better to put your blade in first next time. Or this way might be better too. Yeah, so we get it like that. So now this is what your blade looks like. Looks like Kylo Ren's unstable fiery blade. So we're going to put in the main blade. We're going to put it in straight. We're not going to do any twisting. We just want to get it down. We want to get it fully seated so it has a good connection. And we want to tighten down that screw nice and tight so it doesn't go out. But you don't want to strip it either because it is a small screw. So put it in there, give it a little wiggle, but then go straight in and down. You may have to slide these up a little bit. Kind of. Maybe you should put those on last. Yeah, let's do it that way. This is being crazy just because I'm on video. Take the blade out. Take the top off. Take these off. 1, 2, there's 6 of them. 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's put the blade in now. Alright, fully seated. Make sure it's fully seated. So, I don't know if you can see. I think you can. I like to push it against myself. Hold it down. Pressure down against those pins while I tighten down that screw. Right? Don't go too tight, though, because you don't want to strip it. And you don't want to damage the blade, either. You can test it. Right? Then, you can start stacking on your pieces. Be careful though with these LEDs exposed. You don't want to bend them over or mess with them, okay? So just get it started. Don't be a pain on me on this video. Slide it all the way down. Take your next piece, flip it, slide it all the way down, line up the pattern. And I've made these pieces removable because they add a little bit of weight to the blade. So your wrist can get heavy after a while. It can get tired from it all being heavy. So I wanted you to be able to take them off. And what you can do is you can just take only this piece and, you know, maybe just one of these and just add like a flare at the bottom if you wanted to, if you don't want the whole thing on there. So that's an option too. It's kind of customizable. Stack them on, or you can just leave them on all the time. You can do that too. Here's the last piece. Now this last piece is tighter because it's like a cap. It like holds all these on. I didn't want every single piece to be super tight because it'd be really difficult to get on and off. But the last piece you'll be able to tell is a bit more snug. But line it up, slide it down, it'll hold it on. And then you take your flame piece, right? And you can put your flame piece back in, careful, and then just push it all the way down. It almost snaps into place. And then there is your fully unstable blade with your flame tip. I'm going to kill the light now and do a demo. So you have the buttons that you can hit to power it on, or you can thrust on to turn on the saber if you'd like. So you got smooth swing, swing sounds, you got clashing, you got lockup, blaster deflection, you got force effects, so you just hold your power and then let go, a long hold. You get a quote and you get 3 seconds of an effect, so you get like an unstable white flare. You can twist back and forth to turn off. The saber also does stabbing and melting by stabbing it into an object in a wall, but I warn you, this tip is 3D printed plastic. You could maybe break it, but honestly I'm more scared for the wall because the tip is pretty hard and it's pointy, so you might put a hole in your wall if you stab the wall, but I'm going to do mine for you. There it goes. And then we'll do the melt. You also have lightning block. Sorry, hold on.
Revert.
You have lightning block. And you have color change. So you put it into the wheel.
Red. Orange, red.
You
dark
rotate.
orange,
And you have
orange,
pretty much the entire
gold,
rainbow.
Yellow. Green, yellow. Green. Aquamarine. Cyan. Deep sky blue. Dodger blue. Blue. Ice blue. Indigo. Purple. Deep purple. Magenta. Deep pink. Silver. Glacier. Ice white.
You can do this
Cyan.
same thing in the regular silent font that I gave you
Moccasin.
too.
Lemon chiffon. Navajo white. White.
But this doesn't really work in the rainbow one either. When you find the color you want, press your power, you just tap it, it'll lock it in. And then like I said, if this stuff is getting heavy, you can just slide it off, okay? Because it is pretty heavy, like with my wrist, and I'm a dude. It feels like an actual real heavy cross guard, if that makes sense. If you're swinging it and it feels loose, because I didn't tighten them super tight, get your little Allen wrench and just give your 3 little screws a little tighten. I didn't go super tight with them, but don't strip them, and you'll be able to tell. Okay, that's better.
I want to be free of this pain. I know what I have to do.
So some of your fonts, you can be up and get all blades at once. Some of your fonts, you can be facing down and get staggered ignition. The second blades come on a little bit with a little bit of a delay. You also have background tracks that you can activate. When you first go into them, you'll see from your instructions, you go into like a menu and you can rotate, pick the background track you want, and then you tap your power button and there's a boop sound, and that indicates that it's locked in. So here's like some battle music. You can rotate. Now we have Kylo Ren theme music, so maybe that's what I want. So I'll just touch the power button. You hear that boop sound, now it's locked in. And it'll play that background track. And you can still ignite the saber, and it'll function normally with that track going in the background. To turn it off, you bring the blade off, you power down the blade, and you hold that power button for a long hold, and then it'll go off. Let's go to the silent ones. Or I'll show you the rainbow fire.
When I offer you my hand again, you'll take it.
Alright, this is rainbow fire. So you got that one. Then you have your first silent font, which is just, for display purposes. There's no sound to this font. You can still do the color change if you want.
Orange, red, dark orange, orange, gold, yellow, green, green.
Like maybe you want green, you can do that. Now, if you use this as a display, I would say with this battery, it'd probably run for around an hour, maybe an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours. I've never tested it, but the 5,000 milliamp hour, the 21700 battery it's the big boy battery. It would go as long as you could get. So I'm gonna go back to red.
Red.
And then your last one is the rainbow wave. It's another silent. So it's just a wave of rainbow color. So you got that one too for display purposes if you want.
You're my guest.
And then you go back around to the first font. So that's pretty much the whole what am I trying to say here? That's pretty much the whole overview video. If you got any questions, let me know. I'm gonna let you watch and review this video before I send you the Saber in case there's something else you want to see, or maybe you want me to change something. But that's pretty much it. So thank you for choosing me to do your rebuild. I hope you enjoy the experience. It was an honor to do your Saber. Now I'm going to do one last thing and show you what this looks like without that cover on there. I just take the single one that goes on top, and I just slide it all the way down to kind of help match those side blades. Maybe use one. Yeah, so just use one. If you want to make it a little lighter, still have a little bit of unstable look, just use one like that. So you got that too, and you'll be able to tell, wow, this is much lighter. And it makes the blade a little brighter too, because you don't have the covers on there. See, I can handle it much quicker when I don't have all those on there. Anyway, so there it is. Hope you enjoy it.